Erin Brockovich in corporate justice theater, this story is remembered as a victory. But it wasn't. It was a settlement. And those two things are not the same. One woman stood up to a corporation, uncovered the truth, and forced them to pay. That is the version everyone remembers. It feels clean. It feels moral. It feels like justice won. But if justice actually won, the system that allowed the harm would not still be standing. And it is. This is not a story about whether Erin Brockovich was brave. She was. This is a story about how celebrating individual heroes can quietly excuse structural failure. And once you see that, this case stops looking like a triumph and starts looking like a warning. Most people encounter this story through the film Erin Brockovich, released in 2000. It presents a simple moral universe. A careless corporation poisons a town. A determined woman uncovers the truth. The legal system steps in. Money changes hands. Closure follows. The audience leaves with a sense that the system worked, that accountability arrived late, but arrived nonetheless. But here's the uncomfortable question. If the system worked, why did it require an unemployed single mother with no law degree to expose it? And why did nothing fundamental change afterward? Because the real story of Erin Brockovich is not about justice being delivered. It is about how justice is performed. To understand that, we need to rewind. In the late 1980s, the utility company PG&E operated a gas compressor station in Hinckley, California. To prevent corrosion, they used hexavalent chromium, a chemical compound that is now widely recognized as carcinogenic. The waste was dumped into unlined ponds. It seeped into the groundwater, and people started getting sick. Residents reported nosebleeds, tumors, miscarriages, and unexplained illnesses. When they asked questions, they were told the chromium was harmless, even beneficial. PG&E produced pamphlets claiming it was safe to drink. Internally, the company knew better. Documents later revealed they had data linking chromium exposure to cancer decades earlier. But here's the crucial point. Nothing illegal was happening in the way most people imagine crime. This was regulatory ambiguity. Chemical dumping was common. Oversight was weak. Enforcement was fragmented. This is where the story usually introduces a hero. But heroes appear only when institutions fail. Erin Brockovich was working as a legal assistant at a small law firm when she noticed something strange. Medical records attached to real estate files, sick families tied to land purchases, patterns no one else bothered to see. She didn't have authority. She didn't have credentials. What she had was time, anger, and proximity to the damage. She knocked on doors. She listened. She documented. And slowly, a case formed. Not because the system caught the problem, but because one person refused to stop looking. That refusal eventually led to arbitration. In 1996, PG&E agreed to pay $333 million to the residents of Hinckley. It was the largest settlement of its kind. Headlines called it historic. The movie would later call it justice. But here's the pivot. A settlement is not a verdict. It does not establish guilt. It does not create precedent. It does not force admission. It is a financial agreement designed to end a problem quietly. PG&E did not admit wrongdoing. They did not face criminal charges. They did not see executives jailed. They wrote a check and continued operating. The contaminated site remained toxic for decades. Cleanup efforts stretched into the 21st century, and similar contamination cases continued across the country. This is where the story becomes uncomfortable. The film trains us to believe that exposure equals reform, that visibility forces change, that once the truth is known, the system corrects itself. But the real function of stories like Erin Brockovich is often the opposite. They reassure the public that accountability is possible without requiring it to be structural. The focus stays on the exceptional individual, not the ordinary failure. Corporations prefer this framing. Regulators tolerate it. Audiences love it because it turns systemic negligence into a morality play. One villain, one hero, one victory. Meanwhile, the regulatory environment that allowed the contamination remains underfunded, understaffed, and politically constrained. Chemical safety laws remain reactive rather than preventative. Settlements become a cost of doing business. In that context, Erin Brockovich is not proof that the system works. She is proof that it does not, and this pattern repeats. We see it with whistleblowers who are celebrated after retaliation destroys their careers. We see it with class action lawsuits that deliver compensation without reform. We see it with environmental disasters that produce movies but not laws. The system rewards courage by isolating it, by turning resistance into spectacle instead of change. And this is the theater of corporate justice. The audience applauds. The curtain falls. The stage remains the same. Even Erin Brockovich herself has acknowledged this tension in later interviews, pointing out that the legal fight was only the beginning, not the solution. That communities like Hinckley continued to suffer long after the headlines faded. But popular memory does not hold complexity well. It prefers closure. So the story freezes at the settlement, at the smile, at the victory pose. And that is the real danger. Because when we mistake survival for justice, we stop asking why survival was necessary in the first place. We stop demanding systems that prevent harm rather than compensate for it. We stop questioning why regulation relies on extraordinary individuals instead of ordinary enforcement. And we keep telling ourselves that justice will arrive eventually, as long as someone brave enough shows up. But a system that requires heroes to function is not a system. It is a gamble. Erin Brockovich mattered because she refused to accept the lie that nothing could be done. But the lesson is not that one woman fixed the problem. The lesson is that she shouldn't have had. If you found this fascinating, hit subscribe for more stories about the systems behind the stories we think we already understand.